The city of Rio de Janeiro at night was a living beast, breathing with the life of its millions of inhabitants. Neon lights flickered through the dense fog, casting eerie shadows that danced along the rain-slicked streets. In the heart of this sprawling metropolis, within the labyrinthine alleys of the favelas, a name was whispered with equal parts fear and respect: Isabella Cruz, the deadliest assassin in the cartel underworld. Isabella had always been a force of nature, a woman of few words and deadly precision. Her life had been a symphony of violence, orchestrated by the demands of the cartel that had taken everything from her: her family, her innocence, her soul. But tonight, the symphony was about to reach its final, discordant note. It had started with a mission gone wrong, a simple hit that should have been routine. The target was a high-ranking cartel leader, a man who had crossed too many lines and made too many enemies. Isabella had been sent to deliver the final blow, to erase him from the world. But something had gone awry, an unexpected ambush, a betrayal by one of her own. She had barely escaped with her life, the betrayal cutting deeper than any bullet wound. Isabella knew that in the world she lived in, betrayal was not just an occupational hazard, it was a death sentence. She had spent the past week on the run, evading the cartel's relentless pursuit, but she knew it was only a matter of time before they found her. And when they did, there would be no mercy. But there was something else, something far more terrifying than the cartel's wrath. As she fled through the streets of Rio, Isabella began to notice strange things: shadows that moved on their own, whispers in the wind that called her name, and a chilling presence that seemed to follow her wherever she went. It was as if the city itself had turned against her, as if something otherworldly had been unleashed. On the seventh night, as she sought refuge in an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city, Isabella finally confronted the truth. She was not just running from the cartel. She was being hunted by something far worse. It started with a voice, a low, rasping whisper that echoed through the empty warehouse. Isabella. She spun around, her heart pounding in her chest. The warehouse was dark, the only light coming from the moon that filtered through the broken windows. But there was no one there. "Who's there?" she demanded, her voice steady despite the fear gnawing at her insides. The voice came again, closer this time. "You betrayed us, Isabella, and now you will pay the price." Isabella's hand instinctively went to the gun at her waist, but she knew it was useless. Whatever was coming for her was not something she could kill with bullets. A shadow moved in the corner of her vision, and she turned to face it, her breath catching in her throat. It was a figure, tall and shrouded in darkness, its face obscured by a hood. But she could feel its eyes on her, cold and unforgiving. "Who are you?" she whispered, taking a step back. The figure did not answer, but she could feel its presence growing stronger, suffocating her with its intensity. And then, with a sudden, terrifying clarity, she knew. This was no ordinary enemy. This was a spirit, a vengeful ghost born from the very violence that had defined her life. Isabella had heard the stories, tales whispered among the cartel members late at night. Stories of the souls of the dead who could not rest, who returned to seek vengeance on those who had wronged them. She had never believed them until now. The spirit moved closer, its form shifting and flickering like a flame. "You cannot escape your past, Isabella," it hissed. "You took everything from us. Now, it is your turn to lose." Memories flooded Isabella's mind. Faces of the people she had killed, the lives she had destroyed. She had always told herself it was just business, that it was them or her. But now, as the spirit loomed over her, she realized the full weight of her sins. "I didn't have a choice," she said, her voice trembling. The spirit laughed, a cold, hollow sound that echoed through the warehouse. "There is always a choice. You chose to kill, and now you must face the consequences." Isabella felt a cold hand grip her shoulder, and she gasped as a wave of icy pain shot through her body. The spirit was drawing closer, its face now inches from hers. She could see its eyes now, empty, soulless voids that seemed to swallow the light. "You took everything from me," the spirit whispered. "Now I will take everything from you." Isabella screamed as the spirit's cold fingers wrapped around her throat, squeezing the life out of her. She struggled, but her strength was no match for the supernatural force that held her in its grip. As the darkness closed in, she saw flashes of the lives she had ended, the blood that had been spilled by her hand. And then, with a final, shuddering breath, she was gone. The next morning, the warehouse was found empty, save for a single item, a bloodstained knife, the weapon that had once belonged to Isabella Cruz. Her body was never found, but the legend of her demise spread through the streets of Rio de Janeiro like wildfire. They said that the spirit of vengeance had claimed her, that her soul was now doomed to wander the city, forever haunted by the lives she had taken. And so, the beast that was Rio de Janeiro continued to breathe, its heart beating with the pulse of the living and the dead. In the dark alleys and shadowy corners, the name Isabella Cruz was still whispered, a cautionary tale of the price of vengeance. For in the end, it was not the cartel that had claimed her life, it was the very darkness she had embraced.